Yo guys, what is good? It's Cameron from Deck Builders here, and today we're going through our Pendulum Endymion deck. But before we do, if you guys could hit that like and subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. So just go ahead and do that right now. Yeah, that's right, I'll wait. Okay, now that you've hit that like and subscribe button, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this deck, and then we're going to get straight into the deck list. So, Endymion's a deck that focuses on building spell counters. And using those spell counters, you can do a lot of crazy effects involving blowing up your entire opponent's board, negating every spell and trap card on the field, as well as negating monster effects and destroying all those cards. It's a very powerful deck, especially once you get your board set up. As well as it being a pendulum deck, obviously you can just mass summon level 7s on this board. We don't really have any higher scales, but we don't need it. And on top of that, this deck has a lot of draw power, so it's definitely a very good deck. But let's get straight into the deck list.
So we're running 3 copies of Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic. Now, no cap, this might be one of the best cards in the game, and by far the best card in the deck. So this is a level 7 monster with 2800 attack. Its pendulum effect is that you can remove 6 spell counters from your field, special summon this card from the pendulum zone, then count the number of cards you control that can have a spell counter, destroy up to that many cards on the field, and if you do, place spell counters on this card equal to the number of cards destroyed. You can only use this effect of Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic, once per turn. Now this is super OP, right? Because you can get rid of your entire opponent's board. You can even get rid of Mystic Mind with this card. Mystic Mind doesn't affect it because it's using a pendulum effect, so it's still a spell card, it's not the monster card effect. You can activate Mystic Mind, get this out, destroy your Mystic Mind, destroy your entire opponent's field, and you can special summon the level 7 monster with ease, and you're able to recuperate most of the spell counters that you use to summon this card when you destroy all the other cards. If your opponent has a big board and you have a decent sized board, you can just get all those spell counters back that you lost, so it's completely OP. And then its monster effect is just as OP. Once per turn when a spell or trap card is activated, quick effect, you can return 1 card you control with a spell counter to the hand, and if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, destroy it. Then you can place the same number of spell counters that were on the card that you returned onto this card. So again, this is completely ridiculous. If you get 3 of these on the field, you can negate 3 spells and trap cards per turn. It's that simple. Next, we're running 1 copy of Servant of the Endymion. This card is really good as well, and when it's in your pendulum zone, each time a spell card is activated, you can place 1 spell counter on this card, and then you can remove 3 spell counters and special summon both this card from your pendulum zone and 1 monster from your deck with 1000 attack that you can place a spell counter on. And then when this card is destroyed in your monster zone, you can just place it back into your pendulum zone. So there's a reason this card is limited to 1. It's insanely good. And let's move on to the next card, which is Magister of the Endymion. Now, nothing too much good about this card. You're able to special summon 1 card back from your extra deck, but it's really just used as a level 8 scale. Now next, we're running 1 copy of Reflection of the Endymion. Now this is a really good card as well. Same thing with Magister and Servant. All they do is just collect tokens, and once you've got 3, you're able to special summon 1 card from your hand as well as that card, and then when it's special summoned, you can target 1 monster on your field with a spell counter, and then add that back to your hand. You're able to send 1 of your opponent's cards to your hand as well, so you're able to bounce 1 of your opponent's cards. It's actually a really good card. Now we're running 3 copies of Magical Abductor. Now there's a lot of uses for Magical Abductor. Pretty much when a spell card is activated, you can get a spell counter on this card when it's in the monster zone or in the pendulum zones. That's what makes it so good. Now a lot of people don't recommend putting it in your pendulum zone, even though it has a better effect in your pendulum zone, because then you can't get it out of your pendulum zone, and like the mythical beast cards that require nothing else in your pendulum zone, then you might not want to put it in there if you want to get those cards and want to activate those cards later. So a lot of people just normal summon it and then collect spell counters, and then you can use the Endymions to take the spell counters off it and go off for crazy effects. So it's not that bad. But if you do decide to actually put it in your pendulum zone, then you can remove 3 spell counters and add any card from your deck to your hand. Next, we're running 3 copies of Mythical Beast Master Cerberus. Now this card is an absolute beast again. If you put it in your pendulum zone, you're able to send it to the extra deck, and then you're able to add another another mythical beast from your deck to your hand, which you get JACKAL, which is up next, and then you're able to use JACKAL to special summon it back. But if it's on the field, you can remove 4 spell counters, banish one of your opponent's cards, and that card gains attack equal to the monster that you banish. Now, JACKAL is probably one of my favorite cards in this deck as well. Definitely a card that you want on your end board. We're only running 2 copies of Mythical Beast JACKAL King. Now, when this card is put in your Pendulum Zone and you have no other cards in your Pendulum Zone, you're able to send it to the extra deck and special summon a Mythical Beast monster from your extra deck, so then you can special summon back CERBERUS, which you can use to get this card. So then it's got like a nice little combo. If you draw CERBERUS first, then you're able to special summon it straight to the field using JACKAL. But JACKAL has an insane monster effect where you can remove 4 spell counters, negate an activation, and if you do, destroy that card. So this card's an absolute beast. You get 2 JACKALs on the field and an ENDYMION Mighty Master. It's a GG because what are they going to do? You've got 2 monster effect negates and you've got a spell negate. So it's just overpowered. Okay, this video is taking a while, so I want to start speeding through it. Running 1 copy of Mythical Beast JACKAL, 3 copies of Chronograph Sorcerer. Now this is a really good turbo card, as well as it acts as a level 8 pendulum scale. It also allows you to get Time Gazer Magician, which is up next. We're running 1 copy of Time Gazer Magician, 1 copy of Droll and Lockbird. Obviously the 1 hand trap is nice, especially if you're able to draw it on the first turn and they're going first. It's just a nice little bailout if they're trying to combo up a little too much. Running 2 Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. Now the Spellbook engine is really important in this deck. If you guys don't know how the Spellbook engine works, I mean, I'll just read up all the cards, but we got 2 copies of Spellbook of Secrets, again part of the Spellbook engine. Now, one of the reasons the Spellbook engine works so well in this deck is that it allows you to gain so many more counters, and then using the 2 copies of Spellbook of Knowledge, you're able to draw the cards back. So it's just insanely overpowered. Again, we've got another draw card, which is running 3 copies of Potted Desires. Now, it does suck when you have to banish your entire deck, but it's worth the risk. Again, you get to draw 2 cards and you're activating a spell card to get one of those spell counters. 3 copies of Allure of Darkness. Again, all these draw cards are so good in this deck because you're not just drawing, but you're also adding spell counters. So that's why we run so many copies of draw cards. And then 3 Allure of Darkness. This is the Endymion draw card, and you get to place an extra spell counter and get any card that you want out of your deck. It's just completely OP. 1 copy of Into the Void. Now, Into the Void again is good, but you have to discard your entire hand. But with this deck, you're able to special summon most of your hand anyway, with it just being an overpowered pendulum deck, so it doesn't matter too much. And 1 copy of UPSTART Goblin. Now that's it for all the draw cards. Obviously, the draw cards are good because you get to add spell counters and go through your deck to find the cards that you want. Mythical Institution could actually also be counted as a draw card, as you're able to get any card that you want, but I really just use it to keep my counters. I know a lot of people use it to get the cards they want. Endymion Lab is another card that's able to collect spell counters. One of my favorite cards in this deck, to be honest. Probably my favorite spell. I know a lot of people don't even run it, but I love it. I'm running 2 copies of Mystic Mind. Mystic Mind is just a beast. You guys all know Mystic Mind. And then for the last 2 cards in the main deck, we're running 2 copies of Instant Fusion. Obviously, you guys know all know Instant Fusion, how good this card can be. Now, we are running just a lot of spell cards because, again, we need the spell counters. We can't just rely on using pendulum cards. We need the spells to be able to get those spell counters because it's pretty much the whole purpose of the deck. But we run 22 monsters and 22 spell cards, so it's an even split, 44 cards in total. Now, we do sell all of our decks in the description. We do mark up the price a tiny bit because, you know, it helps us out. We don't really make any money off this channel, or we make 0 money off this channel. So by buying the decks, it helps support us because, you know, we're just making these for free because we like Yu-Gi-Oh videos. But if you guys do want to support us and you want to buy the deck, we'd really appreciate it. If you want to buy it from the link in the description. $200 is a pretty cheap comp Yu-Gi-Oh deck because this deck is definitely comp. It's very good. But now let's move on to the extra deck. So we're running 1 copy of CROWLEY the First PROPHESEER. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say that. But again, this is part of the Spellbook engine. It's a beast, okay? It's pretty much like the new Electromite. It's just so good. You're able to gain so much card advantage by going through your Spellbook engine just by having 2 cards in the field. And by going through your Spellbook engine, you're also adding a bunch of spell counters to your field. Next, we're running 1 copy of Daybreaker, the Shining Magician Warrior. like Magical Warrior, sorry. Again, it's a pretty good card, nothing too crazy here. And then we're running 1 copy of DRACO, Master of the TENYI. And then we're running 1 copy of Knightmare Unicorn. Again, a lot of these link monsters aren't that necessity. I don't really use them too often. They're kind of just like, I need to get rid of something, or I need this kind of thing. I'm gonna get through one of my link monsters. And then we're running 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix. Now we're running 1 copy of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. Now this is one of the cards that I do like. I just never really get around to it because you don't really need to summon it, but it is kind of cool to summon. And then 1 copy of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Now again, just one of those cards that it's kind of a beast. Like you can use Odd Eyes, the other dragon, and then you're able to special summon that card out. 1 copy of Gravity Controller. Again, just another good situational link type monster. When you need to get rid of the 1 card that you use for instant fusion, you know you need to get rid of it because it's going to get destroyed the next turn. So just link off into that. Otherwise, that you don't really use it. And then we're running 2 copies of Thousand Eyes Restricted. Obviously, the card that you use for instant fusion. So it's kind of a beast. Now here's some of the cards that are really good in the extra deck, but they're a bit too expensive for me to include in the deck list for all like the normal people that want to buy it. So these cards, if you buy the deck from the link in the description, you're not going to get them, but they're insanely good additions. We're running 1 copy of IP Masquerena. Now again, this card can go from $50 to $500, so it's kind of insane. We're running 1 copy of APOLLOUSA, Bow of the Goddess. Again, $125. Insanely good card, but also costs pretty much the same amount as the entire deck. BORRELSWORD Dragon, $20 is not too expensive, but again, we're trying to make the deck list, you know, like reasonable price, so we're not going to include it.
Alright, if you guys enjoyed the video, please hit that like and subscribe button, as well as commenting down Endymion if you watched it all the way to the end. I would really, really appreciate it, and I'm out. See ya.